Hello and welcome back. Unit 4, Day 2. Day 1 we did in class together. So the do now we'll do in class as well. So let's just go right to multiplying and dividing rational expressions. So when you have rational, that means it's a fraction. So I have A over B times C over D. None of these are similar, so we cannot reduce anything. We multiply straight across the numerator, straight across the denominator. We do need to mention our undefined. B cannot be 0, D cannot be 0, otherwise the function would be undefined. Okay? So let's start with this one. What will this wind up being? Well, we have x to the third over 4y times y to the second over x. One of these y's cancel with one of those. One of these x's cancel with one of those cancel one of these down to 2. Nothing else can cross cancel or reduce numerator to denominator, so we multiply straight across the numerator, getting x squared y, over straight across the denominator, getting 4. Okay? So the other thing we do need to mention that if y or x were 0, you couldn't have done this problem because there would have been a 0 in the denominator, which would make it undefined. Okay? So the next one. Notice these are binomials now. These were monomials, so I didn't have to factor them. Once we get into binomials or trinomials, your first thing you must do is factor. Okay, so we have a GCF here. 3 times x minus 2 over 2 times x plus 3 times 5 times x plus 3 for the GCF and 4 times x plus 2 for that GCF. Okay? So now look at these and see what can cross cancel or reduce numerator to denominator. Nothing here, numerator to denominator, can reduce, okay? But this cross cancels with this. These two do not cross cancel, and they are not inverses like we discussed yesterday because they're not exact opposites. For these to be opposites, if this was x, this would be negative x, and it's not. So those, there's nothing you can do. Multiply your monomials, 15, bring over your binomial, locked in. Multiply your monomials, 8, and bring over your binomial. Okay, the only other thing to mention is that x could not equal the negative 2 from this, but also over here, if it was negative 3, this whole fraction would not have been able to be done. So we have to mention negative 3 as well. Okay, next one. Find the following product and reduce to lowest terms. So first and foremost, factor. So 2 times x plus 3 over x plus 3, x minus 2 times x plus 2, x minus 2 for dots over 2x. Okay, start looking for common factors. This can reduce numerator to denominator. This binomial matches this binomial. And this 2x, remember, it is a 2 times x. So this 2 is a factor, so is this, because that's times. So that's all that can cancel. Multiply straight across your numerator, holding that place, and straight across your denominator, holding that place. These x's cannot cancel because that is locked in. So just mention your undefined. Go across the entire denominator. It's almost like what we were doing with roots. It's always the opposite. So this would be negative 3 and positive 2. And this 2 is 2. It doesn't have an x. X does, and x cannot be 0. Because if x was 0, 2 times 0 would be 0. This fraction would be undefined. Okay, so there's our answer. All right, let's go on to quotients with division. Do you remember a quotient means this fraction divided by this fraction. We always did it in the past, all the way down to grammar school, elementary school, and middle school, that this first fraction stays. We change division to multiplication, and we do the inverse or reciprocal. This flips, okay? So now I could cross cancel. A 5 goes into both of those. A 6 goes into both of those. Whoops. Okay, and we have 3 over 3, which we could even reduce right here. But if you don't recognize it and you bring the 3 over 3 over, that's fine. 3 over 3, anything over itself is 1. Okay? So a little example is written here. You could watch that. This fraction divided by this fraction. The second fraction, whatever follows that division, you do the reciprocal of that fraction. Okay? Now, you do have to be careful because if you notice, B and C are your denominators here, and that's why they're undefined for 0. This D not being able to be 0 is from the original. So you always have to go back to the original because this D was in the denominator before you flipped it. Okay? So let's go ahead on with this one, do the quotient of it, and reduce it to lowest terms. So I'm going to take everything and rewrite it factored. So x plus 2x minus 2 over 3x divided by, I'm not going to flip it yet until I have everything factored, x minus 2 over 2x. Okay, so right now my denominators have 3 times x, 2 times x, so that means x cannot be 0. So off to the right, I'm just going to put x cannot be 0. So I start my undefined off. So now we're going to take the first fraction and rewrite it. And I'm going to put a times x on that. Sometimes it helps everybody to notice what can cancel. I will change division to multiplication and do the reciprocal of this, putting a times in that monomial. Okay, and this of course is locked in. These locked in binomials cancel. The x's here cancel because they are factors of 2x and 3x. Nothing else cancels. So I multiply straight across. I get 2 times x plus 2 over 3. Okay? Now, there was a x minus 2 here. That means that x could not be 2. So the other part of our undefined is also 2. Okay? So all of that is our answer. You do not ever have to redistribute through here. You want to keep everything in simplest factored form so that in case you didn't fully factor, you'll have that as an example to look at. Okay? All right, so last one, quotient and reduce. So again, I'm going to factor everything. X minus 2, x minus 3 for this monomial, for this numerator. Then I have the denominator, I'm going to lock it in, divided by, factor my numerator, x minus 3 and x plus 3, factor my denominator, x plus 4, x plus 1. So far I have a -4, -4, and -1. So off to the right, down a little bit, where my answer might be, I'm going to put a -4 and a -1 because that would make these two fractions undefined. So now rewrite the first fraction, change division to multiplication, and do the reciprocal. So the x plus 4 is now in the numerator with the x plus 1, and the conjugate pairs x plus 3, x minus 3 become the denominator, which adds to your undefined now. So over here, I'm going to have to also mention positive -3. Okay? All right, so let's start reducing and cross-canceling. So this is locked in because there is a binomial. So this and this cancel. This x minus 3, this x minus 3 cancel. And I don't see anything else that can cancel. So we multiply straight across the numerator. And that's going to give me the x minus 2 times the x plus 1 over the x plus 3. Okay, so that and your undefined are your answers. Okay, and again, you never have to remultiply this. You want to keep everything in factored form to make sure everything's reduced. Okay, so tomorrow when you come in, we'll do that do now with numbers. I'll go over anything you have a question on. And then we will do number 6 together, because that will give us an example of everything that you just watched, but one-on-one with me in class, okay? And then you'll be able to start working on the problems in class that I have. This page I cut in half and enlarged so that it would be a little easier for you guys to get your work in there, okay? So I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.